Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, good night, whichever it is, wherever you are. That's becoming my catchphrase, isn't it? Right, so my name is Sam. I'm known as author Sam J. White on Facebook, but on the titles of my books, it says Samuel J. White. Now, I've been doing interviews with some other indie authors and little-known authors, people who were not published with small publishing companies, as you may well know. And this author who we're interviewing today is someone whose book I've actually read before doing this, and I've actually already reviewed her book. I struggled to say her name, so I'm going to let her say it and just listen to what she has to say.
Hello, my name is Fawn Szymoniak. I go by the pen name online of Sanzaki Kojika. Nice to meet you. I'm from Northwest Indiana, which is really close to Chicago, Illinois, so I pretty much grew up in around Chicago area, which is why I love writing about it too. There's a lot of really cool lore and supernatural, especially that have to do with the locale, and so I've pretty much grown up all around that.
So I was always taught never to ask a lady her age, and I was also taught never to listen to what people tell you, so how old are you?
Probably older than you expect. I'm in my 30s. I always get mistaken for younger. I'm not complaining. And the weight now, that's not something you need to know.
So I guessed Fawn's age on the maturity of her writing and not what she looks like, and I guessed right. Well done.
Currently, I am in my living room, which is one of my two major workspaces as far as writing. I like to kind of be in the center of things. I like noise and stuff, so I just pretty much turn on my webcam here too. I have been reading books since I was pretty young. My mother collected a lot of them, including like mostly fantasy and some mythology and stuff, and I pretty much rated her books, and after a while I ran out of what she had, and somehow that turned into, let's write this. My biggest thing that ended up really pushing me to become more serious about it was actually a creative writing teacher in high school who pretty much really showed me that I was actually not bad at writing and could tell a really good story, and it made me very confident in doing it and made me really want to push forward and do something with it. Oh, how long have I been writing? Yeah, pretty long time. My first story I ever wrote was in as far as full finished story, I should say, because I've kind of dabbled with stuff throughout the years, but in fourth grade, me and a good friend of mine wrote a really dumb story about talking dogs in space. So that was like my first thing that I ever wrote, and that kind of also kept me getting into the process of actually writing stories. That particular story ended up being a couple thousand pages handwritten. Gosh, I don't know, it was super dumb, but it's so silly to look back at it now and be like, wow, we did that for some reason. We started a sequel on it. We never actually got far in the sequel though. But yeah, so that's kind of what did it. And then in middle school, I started writing more. So that would have been around 8, so more than 20 years.
So I did something similar. I was set a task at primary school when I was 10, and I decided to write a story about a family of children who got lost in the woods. And when term ended, I hadn't finished the story, so I continued writing it in the holidays and spent most of my holidays writing it, and it was really, really, really bad, and we're not going there. Goodbye.
I mostly write, fiction is my main thing, but specifically it's fantasy. I like to do like high fantasy or epic fantasy, a little dark fantasy in there. I'm not a fan of a super happy ending, just because I don't find them believable. I also like mystery and paranormal, so my other book series, I have one book series out that is not fantasy, it is actually paranormal mystery. Oh, favorite author, that's always a hard one. I pretty much have fallen in love with so many books, and it's great. The first two authors I ever got into were Terry Brooks and Barbara Hamley, who both do a lot of fantasy, and they're super cool people. I've gotten to meet Terry Brooks a couple times at signings, and it was, pretty much nostalgia all over, but I still read his work now because he still writes, which is great. And Barbara Hamley, I follow her on, I don't even think I follow her on Instagram, it's social media. And it's really cool to just kind of see these people that I grew up with kind of idolize and be like, hey, they're real people. They do nerdy stuff too, and it's great. I'm also recently really into an author named Josh Vaught. I met him at Gen Con one year doing some of the writing panels that he ran, and it taught me a lot about writing in general, first off, and introduced me to his works. And I've been pretty much recommending them to a lot of people since because they're really fun reads. And he's still writing them, so that's always cool too. Best known for, I guess it would depend on the circle you run in. At this point, I would probably say it's either I just started last year. I published the first book in my Dragon Pillars trilogy, Water and Fire, and that goes over very well, specifically with like the fantasy crowd and stuff. It's one of my best sellers in person at shows and cons and things like that. Like I've got a show coming up pretty soon in Maryville, Indiana called ArchieCon, and that one tends to do very well there. Hoping to have the second book out in time for it, but we'll see. The other one would be my Archive of Sinners series, which is my paranormal mystery, specifically the first book, Lust. It tends to get a lot of people have read it and things like that. And it also makes them come back and buy more books, which is always exciting. I had one girl at a show last year talk to me about it and tell me what she liked about it, and we were talking about it, and I don't think she realized I was the author until when she bought the next book in the series, I signed it. She's like, "Oh, you're the author, I'm so sorry." Like, no, never be sorry to give feedback, and it wasn't bad feedback either. It was great. It made me feel really happy. But those two tend to be like the ones I think most people would know me for. It's just going to be the different circles and stuff you go in. If we're talking graphic novels, it would probably be Zo's Kiosk, because that one has been going for 13 years. Favorite book I've written? To be fair, it changes pretty much every year. It's whatever, I don't even say it's necessarily whatever book I'm working on, but it tends to be whatever series I'm in. I am probably still most proud of Dragon Pillars all around. I'm having a lot of fun in that story. I'm going to pretty much jump and say that the third book is going to be my favorite. It has some of my favorite concepts, though I haven't gotten to it yet. Book 2 is in the editing stage right now, so book 3 won't be out for a while. But that one, short synopsis, it's fantasy. Basically every couple thousand years or a couple 100,000, I can't even remember the dates, that's how good I am. But the darkness arises, and the only way to combat these are these dragons, and they can't exist truly in this world, so they choose humans to act as their pillars to help fight, and they are able to access their magic and fight alongside them and give them kind of like a host body. They don't take over or anything like that, so it's not that kind of like possession or whatever. They're basically kind of sharing the same area in these dimensions for now. So, and Water and Fire is one. The Water and Fire pillars awake. Gosh, never would have guessed that, huh? So yeah, that one's been on my mind because I'm doing the edits on Earth and Wind, which is the second one. The other one is another Archive of Sinners book. It is actually book 3, which is Gluttony. It's the one where I introduced the werewolves, and that's when my favorite character comes in. So my favorite character is Ken the werewolf. He, in that particular story, pretty much it's a psychic who works at a detective agency. He's trying to learn his powers. They get joined by a succubus pretty early in its book 1, so that's not major spoiler or anything. But yeah, book 3 is them dealing with a case it's a girlfriend thinks her boyfriend is cheating on her, and it turns out no, he's just a werewolf. So it's a lot of like development with that, but I love kind of the chemistry you get with that, because Ken specifically is not the kind of person you'd expect for a werewolf. I wanted to, with all the characters in that series, I tried to go a little beyond, like, I didn't want to be, the same generic, like, this is what a succubus is like, this is what a werewolf is like. So a lot of the lore and stuff is even tweaked a little bit to make it more original, but I also have the additional fact that the characters themselves are a little different too. So Ken is a neat freak. So he's not there. He's not like, a lot of times werewolves are seen as like more guttural or rough or whatever. He's a sweetheart and he's a neat freak. Likes to cook and clean. And later on, when the story progresses into like the later books and stuff, you kind of start to realize he's also terrified. Like, he's super superstitious. It has to do with like his family background and stuff like that. He's terrified of ghosts. And he's one of these strong guys who can fight them, but he's like, oh my gosh, they scare me. So he's really fun to play with because of that. And even his development with the others, just the whole group dynamic between the group when he gets in is a lot more interesting to me than some of the earlier stuff.
So I do hope to read the rest of Fawn's book soon, and I can totally get what she's saying about getting inside the head of a character of the werewolf and loving that. I've just recently been working on one myself of second part of Derailed and Dispersed, which is not quite out yet, but the character of Sadie gets bitten by a werewolf and a vampire at the same time, and she's like, "Oh, I would help, but I don't want to hurt anyone. I don't want to bite my boyfriend. I love him," and that sort of thing. So I know where she's coming from there.
All right, let's see. What are your favorite things to eat and drink while writing? I drink a lot of caffeine. Don't we all? Writers, I think, have some of the worst sleep schedules, writers and artists, and I'm both, so my sleep schedule's pretty messy. So I typically drink a lot of, I'm not a huge fan of coffee. I have a Japanese coffee tea thing I like that's not bad, and I drink a lot of, Pepsi Zero with cherry in it and things like that. I usually go zero on soda or diet.
So I had to stop and laugh here quickly because it reminded me of a recent post on Facebook which stated that Pepsi Max Raspberry tasted like the air fresheners which are put in your urinal toilets. Now, the person who made that post was me, so I just had to laugh.
So I drink caffeine like that. I do love tea. I love loose leaf tea, but I am sometimes too busy or lazy to actually put the effort in to make it. So instead I just buy it and it sits there. I eventually get to it, so it doesn't go bad, but I'm pretty bad about that too. As far as eating, I tend to forget to eat a lot when I'm writing or working, so I kind of just go straight through. If I am, it is always I guess snack food and stuff, whatever is nearest to me. Cheese, I like cheese a lot.
Although I believe Fawn is totally telling the truth here about not eating while writing, and a lot of writers say this. Many of them have said it, and some of them, their bellies kind of give away the fact that they're lying. But not Fawn.
In the streets, no. I mean, I do have an author picture in the books or anything, but a lot of them, for a while, the biggest sellers were my graphic novels, which contained no picture whatsoever of me, so nobody really knew what I looked like. But as far as shows and stuff go, I have a lot of people at the shows, even when I'm walking around, and be like, "Oh, hey, you're the one who wrote this," and things like that, and that's super cool. I even have people who now follow me on social media and stuff, and some of the shows I go aren't as traditional. I do some outdoor events where I'm actually running a costume contest or something for the area, but in the process I also end up getting a table and using getting a booth to sell stuff while I'm at it. So I'm usually not managing that, but rather an assistant is for me, oftentimes my mother. And I still have a lot of people who will come to me first and be like, "Oh, hey, I bought this from you at another show and I can't wait to get the next volume and stuff," and that's always really cool. I think the weirdest recognition I've ever had is I do a lot of cosplay, which is costume, dressing up as characters. And for a while, I dressed up as a character from my webcomic, Zoskias, the one that's 13 years old. And in 2008, I had a lot of people always guess at who I was. Nobody ever knew. And there was actually a girl down in a show in Texas who legit knew which character I was and what I was. She couldn't remember the name Natasha, but she remembered her partner was Randy. She likes bubblegum. She fights with wind blades, and it was super exciting. So that's probably my favorite recognition, period. But yeah, overall, no, I mean, people recognize me just because of my hair, but not because they actually know what I do.
So while we're on the subject of Fawn's hair, I have a character in one of my books, in Winter Night's Dream, called Katsina, who has long blonde hair and a plait, and she refuses to cut it off, always making excuses not to get a haircut. And I thought, when I saw a picture of Fawn, I thought, wow, if this book ever gets made into a movie, I want her to play the older version of Katsina, just purely because of the hair. Love it.
I'm mixed with the world of indie authors. I have met some amazing people in there. I have met some of the most supportive people ever. I finally found the right people, I guess to say. I worked for a while with a lot of the shows I was doing earlier. One of my editors is really involved in romance, and so that's where I don't do romance, but I happened to kind of get involved in that, and I found I really didn't like it. They were super cliquey. I found half the time they were looking down at me, and yeah, I'm fantasy and paranormal, and so they're like, "Oh yeah, what is she doing here on this show?" And it's this show is trying to get other genres in, but then they kind of lock the other authors there, lock you out. I got very fortunate more in the past couple years where I've been doing more local shows at libraries and stuff, and I met a group of women that we kind of end up on a lot of the shows, and they are some great people. They've come out to signings and stuff of mine, and it's a great community, and we all write different genres. Some of them write children's books, I write fantasy, some of them write nonfiction. It's a really good community for that. If you can find the right people, they give you that support, and I think that's great. And then even with the online community, I've been finding groups online and stuff, and some of them I haven't had as much luck on as others, but I've still managed to make some connections between them, and it's great to be able to have people who are doing the same exact thing as you and be able to talk to them about it and kind of find out what their problems are and how they're doing things and work back and forth with them. So it's pretty exciting. But as far as barriers, it's obviously the genre thing can always be a problem, and that's been like the big thing for me. But I'm also I'm super bad at marketing myself. I've gotten better, but it's weird because I'm not proud of my stuff or anything like that, but because I just feel bad about like pushing it, and that's like the big thing you have to do as an indie author. It's taken me time to get over that. So at the same time, whenever I'm seeing people post and like push their stuff, I tend to be like, yay, let's do this, let's go, but then I can't do it to the same myself. I feel bad if I ask them to do something, and I'm trying to get out of the habit of that. So it's good because it's good to get, more involved and do things like exchange reviews and beta read and stuff for other authors, and I love doing that kind of thing. So that's kind of like my anxiety getting in the way of that, but it hasn't been too bad. And it's definitely a learning experience, but I've kind of jumped in with, head first, and now I'm starting to get afloat. Okay, current work in progress is, technically I'm editing the second book of the Dragon Pillars, Earth and Wind. It's been super exciting for me, just because this is a story I've been wanting to tell for a long time. It's a story that's kind of been sitting on the back burner for several years, and it wasn't something I kind of really thought I'd do anything with, but last year, or 2 years, God, it's 2020 already? 2018, I always let my readers pick what I'm going to do for NaNoWriMo. I always have like a couple ideas, like these are the stories I want to work on, which one do you want to see? In 2018, I put 3 stories out there. One of them was the sequel to Altair, because I finally caved and decided I was going to do a sequel to that. One of them was the next book in the Archive of Sinners, which did get written eventually. It just wasn't written at the same time it was planned initially. And then the next one was Dragon Pillars, which I thought was hilarious that it won because the summary I put on it was so dumb. It was basically something to the extent of, there are dragons and pillars, and so that won. But it was interesting, and it was so fun to finally start that. So it's really fun to go through it. My favorite character already from the get-go has been Shadow. He's not in at all. Doesn't come until book 3. So it's been really kind of, book 2 is kind of hard for me because book 1 I was really into it and I was really feeling it, but then book 2 I'm like, oh, I gotta trudge through it. So it kind of had a pause, and then this past year in 2019 for Nano, I finally finished it. It ended up being a little longer than expected. So with the edits and stuff, I'm going to see if there's anything I can trim down or things. There never is. I always want to add more. But at the same time, it's been fun. So in the second book, they find the earth and water, or the earth and wind pillars, and so every pillar is they're really uniquely different. Earth's pillar is a pacifist. Earth Dragon himself is a warrior, so it's kind of a contrast of personalities there, and it's a lot of fun doing that. It's also where they find Earth has to do with the backstory of another character, so I've got to build up her development, and she's probably my second favorite character after Shadow. I really love her. She was going to be she wasn't never going to be like a side character or anything, but I thought the growth and stuff I was able to do with her in book 1 alone was amazing, and so she kind of quickly grew into my heart. Lady Valhan, the Lady Defender. So I've had a lot of fun with her. And then when you start getting some more backstory and some of the other characters and learning more about the, I guess like the politics of the world too, because they go from desert to like snowy mountain in that book. So it's kind of a big jump of even habitats, where in the first one they were more in like plains and a little bit of like almost what's it called, like a jungle kind of climate where it's a little wetter and like rainforest type thing. So swamps, marshes, that kind of thing. So it's different environments for one thing, and so it's also a different thing. Like the characters have to prep differently. They're running into different obstacles. Obviously at the beginning they only have water and fire, so then they're trying to get by some of these obstacles, like nature obstacles, using those 2 elements. And then when they get Earth, it gets a little easier for some of them. But you're up in the middle of the mountains. Earth can do something, water can do something, fire can only do it when they're near the volcano, until they get wind. And wind is particularly interesting for me because I purposely really tried to set it up so I hope everyone thinks that who's going to become the wind pillar is not who actually becomes it. But yeah, so that's my big one. I'm also at the same time working on what is going to be volume 14 of Zoskias. So that's a graphic novel, and that one is something I do 2 pages a week without fail. So it's not like I'm sitting down working on it this time. I've also been working on the re-edits for volume 1 of Zoskias. In fact, I finished those, so I'm super excited. I'm gonna be sending it off to print this weekend and finally have, like, after 13 years, a new edition. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. I've got a bunch of other things started, but we'll see what I actually work on this year. Oh, indie authors. Oh gosh. I guess anything by Samuel J. White. I have actually read his stuff. I was, to be fair, I read, oh gosh, I can't even think of the name of it. I'm sorry, I'm horrible at this. Like, I was giving author recommendations earlier to my younger sister. It was all just like, there was this book with this in it. And I'm like, it's so bad. But it was romance, and I'm not a huge in the romance genre, but I did enjoy elements of it and stuff like that, because I can appreciate a book, no matter what the genre is. There's my cat sneaking up in the background. But, for the indie author thing, a lot of times it's not like I have anything set or planned. I see a book that suddenly catches my attention. I'll be like, oh, I need this. The show I'm doing at ArcticCon in Maryville, which is end of February, I have another friend who is also an indie author, and he's going to be there. I think he's only got like a couple books out now, but he's working on some big books in the future, and we've talked a lot about them. Thanks, Arata. But so it's gonna be kind of cool to do that. We're probably gonna actually set up our tables next to each other because we're working on a project together in the future. So it's stuff like that. So I love those little kind of shows because you get to go around and actually see the authors in person and stuff, and that's my favorite time to buy indie books. I go to these library shows, and yeah, I'm at my own table, but you bet I'm at everyone else's table. Be like, okay, what am I gonna buy? And obviously based on sales, depends on what I get to buy. But I also like going to like used bookstores and just picking stuff up at random too. But yeah, so I don't have anything specifically in mind, but I'm going to buy books because I do. I have been really grateful to have some good support in this whole time I've been writing. My mother, Linda, has been an amazing backer of everything. She's gone to shows with me and helped me lug boxes of books and things like that. She's helped me sort through my stock and inventory. She's even gone to shows that I was unable to go by herself. So she has been just a great support in everything, managing all this and stuff like that. And she's also helped me even deal with like setting up showings and things like that and signings. And so it's been great to have that kind of support from, somebody in your family, because a lot of people don't get that, and that's really sad. The rest of my family was a little slower to join up on it, and especially at the time when I started writing, I was only like 21 and stuff when my first published book. So it was a little different story. And even since then, that book has been edited and republished, and I kind of I don't want to say rebranded myself, but I kind of started all over again at that point. My fiance Martin has been super great and supportive for things too. He doesn't read. He tried to read some of my works before, and it wasn't that he didn't like it, but he read a chapter and was like, there's a lot of words in here. So that's the kind of person he is. But he's happy to talk about things. He lets me bounce off ideas. Every year when I do like the Inktober and stuff for my stories, he's always following the art and asking questions and getting information. He does actually read and support my webcomic, like my graphic novels and my webcomic and stuff like that. So it's not like he doesn't ever get interested in my work. I also have some amazing friends who have been super supportive this whole time too. Like Rana Faye or Charity has been a great asset as far as having somebody to just bounce ideas. She's pretty much edited and proofread like almost every graphic novel I've ever done, and at a very reasonable cost. So it's been great. A quick thing, I've had other friends and stuff that have been really helpful just to bounce ideas as well. And now that I'm meeting more author friends and stuff, it's really cool to just have that ability to kind of go back and forth with it. And so that's the big goal for me, is to make more people like that. Oh, questions for viewers. That's a hard one. I don't know. I guess the biggest thing is the biggest thing for me in general is when you're writing, I really want to know what people think of my work. I don't need it sugarcoated. Yes, it hurts to have somebody be like, oh, it sucks. But sometimes I personally feel just as a writer or a creator, you're never going to really be able to get better unless you find out what your weak points are and what your strengths are. So I encourage all sorts of feedback. So I guess, I have to say a question to viewers like, why aren't you leaving reviews on things? Not necessarily mine, just anything. Reviews help indie authors so much, and they really help direct them, even if they're not nice. You should be polite in them to an extent, but so don't brag on them. But if you really didn't like the story, let them know. You can still like elements of it or see the good in it. I've read stories by a lot of indie authors that I was just like, oh, this grammar is horrible. But the story itself had interesting points, so I always try to let them, I talk to them personally before I put a review up, but I always tell them, hey, you guys should find a better editor and things like that.
So Fawn's made a really good point here. A lot of indie authors have said this. If you don't review something, then how are we supposed to know whether you liked it or not, and how are we supposed to make improvements for the next book? Fawn's right here too. You don't want someone to tell you something is brilliant when it's not, or that they loved it when they didn't. She gave me 3 stars for my book, mainly because she doesn't like romance, and my book's sort of romance, but lots of other things mixed in there too. So honesty is the best way, and I really respected that review.
So my website is s-kojika.com, s-kojika. You can also find me on Amazon under Sanzaki Kojika. I don't have a YouTube channel or anything. I mean, I do, but I don't use it. So you'll see a couple speed paints on there and maybe a couple covers of songs. But I'm going to try getting into doing some book promos this year. So as I start doing that, I'll be promoting it more. But I have been running into a big problem with trying to find somebody that I feel is good for the voice of Very Kane from Archive of Sinners. The rest, it isn't an issue, but because that one's first person, it's been more of an issue. As far as on social media, if you look up Sanzaki Kojika, it's on almost, I use that name everywhere. Instagram is just Sanzaki Kojika as one word. Twitter is Sanzaki_Kojika. Facebook is Sanzaki Kojika author from my author page, and then just Sanzaki Kojika for my art page. Thank you guys so much for listening to me babble for time. It's been some time. So I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I hope you enjoy all the other interviews that Samuel is doing, because this is truly a great way to find authors. And don't forget that you can, hit subscribe to his channel and follow all these. And of course, you can look me up under Sanzaki Kojika. Bye!
So these interviews were meant to be about 10 minutes or so, but we'll let Fawn off with 27.5 minutes because it was interesting. So, as she says, all the links are down here. Subscription buttons should be around here somewhere. Links to other interviews should be around here somewhere. Links to my books down there as well. Links to Fawn books down there. And links to our website and everything like that. You're probably bored now, so I'm going to say bye-bye.